Viewers, listeners, welcome to another episode of Blighty Talks Bricks. My guest today is somebody I've known for a few years. When I first met him, I was struck with him. He meets the criteria of the guest that we have on this show with regards to that he's an amazing human being. He's great company, very charismatic. I also think for viewers and listeners today that those of you that are petrol heads, you're going to enjoy this podcast because this man knows so much about cars, particularly at the performance and luxury end. So I'm really looking forward to the next 40 minutes or so. I'd like to welcome Neil Vas. Neil is the founder and CEO of BVS. They are leading providers of luxury and performance cars globally. And I'm excited to crack on with this. So Neil, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. It is an absolute pleasure to be here today with you. And in such esteemed company that you've had before. What a platform, and thanks very much for the opportunity today to come and have a chat with you.
Well, it's lovely to see you. For those that are viewing and have been following us on our journey, you'll notice that we've got a slightly different set. We're going a little bit more contemporary, so we'd certainly like the views back from people that have been watching the episodes previously. So you're the first person in a new environment. So I suppose new cars, new environment goes together.
Yeah, there we go. Well, new and used, basically, or pre-owned
Well,
cars.
we've got on a sofa that's definitely used because I've sat on it a few times.
Yeah, the old Chesterfield.
So I just want to start my first question. How did you get into the new and used car business?
Oh, that's a good one. So I was when I came out of school early, and I was I went to 5 secondary schools. I was always in trouble. And actually, my brother was the academic, 9 O-levels, 4 A-levels, 2 law degrees, so on and so forth.
You've got over it, by the way, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, just about. But I was I was kind of the black sheep of the family. And I just couldn't settle at school, really. I left school with 1 GCSE. A-levels weren't for me. I went on to do a college course as a BTEC. In business studies, and pulled out of that early. Was going out with a girl at the time whose father was a sales manager for a BMW garage.
Really?
He was BMW garage, yeah, B&P Motor Company down in Beckenham, on the edge of Annerley and Beckenham. And he said, come down and we'll give you a role as junior sales. And I was 16 at the time.
Interested in cars then?
I was such a geek. I was the kid that was at the London Motor Show that used to be at Earl's Court.
Yeah.
And I'd be kind of first in line to get through the door. And I would be walking around all the stands to get the press packs from the manufacturers, blagging my way onto the with a bit of hospitality and what have you, getting my nose in the door. And also I was the guy that I was always writing off to the tuning houses, so the likes of Alpina were for BMW,
right.
AMG prior to it being bought by Mercedes. I would write to AMG. I was geeky to the point of writing to them and asking them for their press packs and what have you. Because this is pre-internet.
Yeah.
In order to get the necessary information, you had to put yourself out there, and that's exactly what I did. I was the geek boy. And
so, how long did you stay in that role for? Not long by the sounds of it.
I was in car sales, both for B&P, and then I went off and did 2 other used car pitches. And I was fortunate enough to work for the old school motor traders. They used to call them the Warren Street traders.
Right.
If you wanted a used car, that's kind of where you went to. The area you went to was Warren Street. And when those guys had done their training there, they then peeled off and populated wherever they did across London and the suburbs into various car sites. Again, pre-internet this was. So the buying criteria of someone would be, if we walk down this strip where all these car dealers are, by the time we got from that side to that side, you're going to find something that you'd like and you would buy a car.
Yeah.
So it was really, really good training for me. I went off and worked for Toyota as a sales controller, sales manager, if you like, and got an introduction really to new car sales and how that worked, allocation. But I realised I was driving around in all the nicest cars at the time. So I had an MR2 as my company car and a Celica, but I didn't own it.
Yeah.
Well, I knew very quickly that in order to own it, you needed to earn it.
Yeah.
And that meant having either your own business or being in a job role that allowed you to make serious money. I was never going to make any big money working for someone within the car business.
Yeah.
So I went off and did some office equipment roles. I worked for, I knew that I was good at sales, and all through my career has really been commercial sales led. But when you look back now on the amount of people that I've interviewed over the years, and you asked, did they go through boot camp? And boot camp would have been really, you wanted to work for, or you wanted one of the people that you were interviewing to work for, the likes of a Yellow Pages when they existed.
Yeah, remember them. Let your fingers do the walking.
Exactly. A Pitney Bowes, Frankie Machines, Alcatel, Xerox, Canon, photocopier kind of sales, because the sales training was exemplary. And I worked for Alcatel. So I left the car business, went into office equipment sales. And
was you missing the car business or not?
No. Right. To be honest with you, I left the car business in 1991 when it was in the middle of a huge recession. This was when property interest rates were in the 15% and what have you, and no one was buying cars. No one had any money. It's full stop. When your mortgage rate quadruples,
a bit like
times. And, yeah, it does. Not quite the same roll up, but yeah. It was a similar feeling. And I thought it was a good time to jump, really, and get myself into a role that was paying more money as well.
And so that led you into, you wanted your own business. You knew that from working in the car business. You knew that where you was now. How did you get into the VVS world?
Yeah, so going through office equipment, I left, and when I was given an opportunity to work for a guy, he's dead now actually, who was my mentor. And who became my mentor, and he was in IT infrastructure and mobile phone sales.
Yep.
And he said, "You're wasted doing what you're doing there. This is a big seat at the big table, and it was potential to earn more money, higher roles, so on and so forth. But it wasn't something that I really knew about, that I took to very quickly, and I wound up working or running a section of Colt Telecom, which was the fifth largest company in Britain at that point in time. We're not British Steel off the FTSE and so on and so forth. And that was about high-end IT or technology infrastructure sales.
In fact.
And I was a consumer of the cars that I now sell within VVS. So I was into my Porsches and so on and so forth. I lived just round the corner from here.
From where, right, yeah.
And then walked into the city every day. But I had a fleet of cars that I managed to cobble together as a collection. But because of my background in car sales, when I was kind of done with technology sales, when I say done, I was a new dad. I'd moved out from here Shoreditch to Tunbridge Wells, and I'd taken a role at a software company where I was executive board level. We'd got it into a pre-float situation, and it was time for me to exit. And I'd said to my wife at the time, would it be okay if I went back into the car business? I had a job role, actually, 2 offers at the time. One was for Motorola, which was one of the big brands for mobile phones.
No, you just held that as the brick.
Exactly.
Just holding the brick there.
Exactly. And the other was for Microsoft. Both of the roles would have demanded me having to spend a lot of time on the plane, either in Seattle, where Microsoft was headquartered, or Motorola was Libertyville in Chicago. And I thought, with the new baby, I was working 80, 90-hour weeks beforehand anyway.
Yeah.
I'd said to Sarah at the time, my ex-wife, what do you think about me going back into the car business? I don't fancy taking those roles. And she said, she was always backed whatever I wanted to do anyway. And she said, if you want to do it, do it. So I went and met the guy that I'd got involved with who gave me my first start in the car business. And I called him. He still kept in touch with me, Stuart. Again, another guy's passed away now. And I said to him, I want to meet you. I've got something that I'd like to offer you as an opportunity. So he said, come and meet me at the Selsdon Park Hotel Golf Club. Yeah. So we arrived and I said to him, he said, well, what do I owe this for? You know, nice to see you and what have you. And I said, I'd like to buy half the business, your business. And he said, what? I said, have you bumped your head? Have you gone mad? What do you know about the car business?
Well, you didn't know a lot, didn't you?
And I said, well, this has been like 12 years, Neil, 13 years you've been out of the game. You've got the audacity to come and sit in front of me and say to me, you want to buy half? Really? Yeah, he was not happy at all. And he said, I'm a bit taken aback by it, really. And I said, look, let me rephrase it then. How about I put in a section of money that under your jurisdiction and supervision, we buy some cars and the profits is carved completely half between both of us. Yep. And your cars, because the IP within your company, as you rightly say, is you, nothing to do with me. And you profit from 50% of the value of the cars that we turn over. And he's like, when do you want to start? I said, I already have. I'll see you at 8 a.m. And that is how I got back into the car business again. Within 9-10 months, I'd outgrown what we were doing. And this was right on the cusp of the internet breaking, really. And the internet was transformational for the car business. Yeah. Gone was the day that someone would walk from one end of a street to the other, choose a colour, a car. Now you could put into a search engine what spec, model, the finest detail you want in order to really profile the car that you wanted, and up it would spring. And I'd said to Stuart at the time, this is where it's at, not there. This is where it's at. And I put together this online hub and we went from strength to strength to strength. And I kind of outgrew that scenario, if you like. Yep. And VVS was born. Now, VVS was born out of, originally there was 270 car sites of all value of cars, really mid-range cars, you might have said. But I knew quite quickly with the way that we were buying cars, because you're only in the car business, you're only as good as the way you buy
on the forecourt.
Absolutely, and the way it's bought. So I realised quite quickly that margins were getting shaved. More and more and more. Auction policies were coming in with the big groups that I'd be buying from.
Yeah.
And my forte, the reason why people would listen to me at the time is I would go into, say you were a sales manager at a Volkswagen dealer. I would walk in to see you and I would say, hi, Steve, I'd like to buy all your part exchanges. And he would say to me, oh, yeah, because normally traders would go in and go, they want to cherry pick. Oh, I want one of those. I don't want that. But I'd say, I'll take it all. Yeah. The rough with the smooth, and it will be gone within 4 hours.
Does that still happen today?
No, I mean, now there's a lot of, it's 99% of it has gone to auction policy now, right. which is where I saw it going. And I realised, with it going to auction policies and the trader market, if you like, opening up there, it was going to shave down the margin to the point of you really, really had to be, doing far more to earn
the volume to make up.
Yeah. So I thought, we need a niche. And VVS now, just to let you know, or to let everyone know, is the largest independent Lamborghini dealer in Europe.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So for every 3 calls that are made in the UK, either purchasing or selling a Lamborghini, I will be one of those 3 calls.
Really?
But that took 15 years to do that.
Doesn't come overnight.
No, it doesn't. And it came about by, everyone says to me, why Lamborghini, Neil? Were you this mad fan of Lamborghini? And I was as a kid. I liked the Countach and, design element of them were, breathtaking. Gandini, who's just passed away, who penned that car, I was a fan, but I'm a businessman at heart. And, looking at something that you're going to wrap a business around and make money from is different than you do with your heart.
Absolutely.
So Lamborghini at the time was, was being bought by the VAG group, by the Germans. And because Lamborghini's name beforehand was synonymous with it being a warranty nightmare. It was going to break. Right. It was just a matter of time. You drove a Lamborghini with one eye on the oil pressure and the other eye on the temperature gauge. Right.
One of them was going to go.
One of them's going to go at some point in time. So
you do realise you've just got 2 calls now rather than 3.
Yeah. So yeah, I saw with the Germans picking up Lamborghini, I thought there's an opportunity here to really centre around. There were so many Porsche specialists, so many Ferrari specialists, but no one was doing Lamborghini through the fear of it breaking, really.
Yeah.
But with Audi VAG buying it,
you knew that
they ironed the platform out of and when they came out with Gallardo and as the first models, which came out in 2003, I was kind of at the forefront of being the used, pre-owned independent that really focused on that brand.
And what's the main cars you're going to have in the garage? It's going to be Lamborghini, Porsche.
Yeah, well, I've normally got between 70 and 110 cars in stock, all undercover in one place, which is quite unique. You can't do it in the centre of London. Real estate wouldn't allow you to do it. No. Number one, from a cost perspective. Even the big boys, the likes of, your H.R. Owens with multi-franchises, they all out in Hatfield now, or
push out to the edge.
You've got to. You just don't have the landscape or indeed the real estate in order to.
Well, we've done a few garages over the years, I've seen it go that way.
And so down in Kent, which is where we're based, it's not just Lamborghini now. I had to spread the wings with. Doing the job well with Lamborghini also opened up, when you're selling a product like that, you're buying a product back in again. So somebody's either
trading a Porsche,
a Ferrari, or whatever it may be.
Whatever it is.
And then also you've got kind of seasonal traits to the way people buy cars. So sports cars in the summer, 4x4s in the winter. And in order to have, a business that's successful, you have to have a spread across what's selling and when it sells. So, we sell a lot of 4x4s, Range Rover, the X product from BMW, and anything that's heavy and weighty. Coulinans, Urus, whatever's lumpy, the lumpier for us, the better, really.
And the market at the moment, I mean, we're a few weeks before this goes out, is okay?
So this post-COVID Brexit, because I did a lot of import and export as well, Brexit is kind of, it's null and it's absolutely collapsed the market from an import and export perspective. Yeah. Because whatever was 20% or VATable before in the EU, it wasn't. When you're leaning outside, it's not only the 20% VAT, it's another 10% on import duties. Okay. So you're taking 30% margins out of cars that weren't there before.
Yeah.
It's dead.
Yeah.
So yeah, the car business now, the state of it, it's good. I have to say this year, we've come out the stops and there's been green shoots.
Which is nice to hear.
With the aftermath of what happened with COVID, and COVID was a funny time because we all thought the first things that are going to go, that people are going to stop buying, is luxury items.
Songs and artwork and luxury watches through the roof.
And it's because, people that had the means to buy those cars were bored. They were sat at home. They weren't able to go away. They weren't able to go, skiing or on holiday. Everything had shut down in that regard. But what they could do was to buy a car, put it in the garage, walk around it with a glass of wine, show people what they've got on camera and what have. And my transporter did 90,000 miles in 8 months through click and collect. And we just couldn't. Now that's testament, really.
Nick, hold on. Click and collect. Yeah, just hold on, Mum. I'm just clicking and collecting my Lamborghini.
yeah, crazy. But thankfully, we've been doing it a long time, and the business has a clientele that's been built over a long period of time now. I think we're in our 17th year.
Is it really?
Yeah, 18th year. Sorry, excuse me. And when you look at it as those clients calling, I scratch my head as well as to what you just said there. And I'll have the car, send it up to me. We used to send it in COVID with, all the plastic around the door sills, the seats, the steering wheel, and it would come out, would go in. But prices, because of supply and demand,
just went.
Took off.
Yeah.
Now, the aftermath of that, we've come out of it. We've been
it's
a couple of years out,
so to speak.
It's not just levelled out, it's been an equalisation.
Is it right?
And that equalisation has kind of come in two tranches. It came sort of a 10% decline as a slide, and then we've seen over the last year at least another 10 to 15% fall.
Really?
Now, when you're carrying such big stock, and we own a lot of our stock, we do consignment and sale or return.
Yeah.
Probably 60% I own and 40% we own as a business, and 40% is done as consignment deals.
Yeah.
You've really got to be careful because
there's a pressure. It's a cash flow challenge.
Absolutely.
It's the same. It's the same. Well, cash is king in every business, but it's the same for the house building industry at the moment.
Of course.
We've had the same. We had the increase in materials. We had certainly in the apartment world the struggles there with COVID because people turned their way away from apartments for outdoor space.
Yeah.
Also the belief that they wasn't going to go into the office on such a regular basis. So I totally understand where you're coming from there. One of the things I just want to ask you, and I don't know, this is the sort of my dark side of my humour. Have you had anyone turn up who is coming along to buy their first flash car and they've got in it on the forecourt and just put their foot down and the gear's been the wrong way or...
Yeah. I mean, I've had it several times. The amount of times
I shouldn't laugh.
Yeah, no, I know. And unfortunately, you can see certain things coming which other people can't. And you've got, young lads that turn up like they're come out of the boy band and they rock up and they want the orange one and, they literally look like Bruno Mars and so on and so forth.
You're talking about me, didn't you?
Of course I am. Look. And you just know that these things are missiles and you've got to treat them with respect. As I get older, I'm 53 now, and I've been driving and I did a bit of racing and so on and so forth. But now the respect that you need to have for the vehicles is absolutely paramount. And I always say to people, luckily I don't have to do test drives anymore. The boys do it all now. But you have to tell people to be careful with the right foot and cold tyres and cold brakes and so on and so forth. But I've had a guy. And he was in the motor trade. This guy, I say he was in the motor trade. He was in commercials, but the pickup a Lamborghini Superleggera Gallardo.
What was that? 0 to 60?
Oh, mate, sub 3 seconds. These things. As I said, they're missiles. But a Superleggera is basically a race car that's for the road. So it's on. The rubber that it sits on is cup tyres, so they're like semi-slick, if you like.
See, this is all stuff I don't get.
Yeah, well, it's not a car that you won't drive in the rain.
Rubber, right?
That's what I'm getting to. And it was teeming down outside, and this lad had turned up, and I'd said to him, don't drive the car. What a stupid day to pick the car up. And he wound up in the Armco on the M25 about 20 minutes later on with us, having to go and send a tow truck to pull it out. Yeah. And it's just sad to see, the amount of cars that I sell, and I kind of feel that we have a duty of care to say to people. I always say, where are you going? Pick it up in the right conditions. You never know what can happen. You're driving something with these things are now 600, 700, 800 brake horsepower. They are absolutely powerhouses. Yeah. You stamp on the right foot, and you don't know what you're doing, you will turn around and round in circles and end up backwards in the ditch.
Well, I've seen people do that. I've been on track days and I've seen people do that.
Yeah. I mean, these days on a track, I tell you, Steve, I was at the Palmer Autodrome doing a race day, fantastic race day. If you're into track days, that's like the mecca to do it because you go through all the aspects of single seat, catering, two-wheel drive Clio Cups right the way through. And I know a couple of the instructors, and he said to me, go on, Neil, how's it going? I was first thing in the morning at 8:30, I was in a Clio Cup, and we smashed that, had a really nice time and what have you. And then as it got through the day, I became slower and slower and slower. And when it got to lunchtime, I said, no, I don't want to go out anymore.
Yeah.
And they're like, what's the matter with you? Come on. I think it's just when you become... I think it's a bit age. I always say to people, the car's safe. I've had my fun. It's back, put it away, because it's when you start getting tired and whatever, you can really do not only the car some damage, yourself some damage.
I never had that in me from when I was a little boy, speed. So speed wasn't great for me. But I recently had the opportunity for my birthday to go on a Spitfire.
Oh, wow.
Which was amazing.
Wow.
I mean, and then you realise what those young guys put themselves through. But the guy did this sort of upside down roly-poly thing, which...
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, did you enjoy that?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Would you like to do it again?" And I said, "No, I've got no interest at all.
No.
I've ticked that box. Can you take me back now, please?"
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it, when you're in the air, when you're doing aerobatics and what have you, come down, and it's actually when you put your feet on terra firma that you realise, because of the fluids in your ears and what have you, how sick you can feel when you're actually down.
Unfortunately, I didn't get that, but I've had some friends that have had similar. So I'm really glad that you've stopped all this being speeding around stuff.
Yes.
You've got another business of which you're co-founder, of which is Brim.
Yeah.
Of which I declare my interest as a non-exec. But
absolutely,
Brim, fall to the Brim, probably goes against fast cars in some ways.
Well, it's funny, everyone...
Well, I better just tell people what it is.
No, please do.
Electric charging points, but it's not.
Yes.
It's more than an electric charging point.
It is. Yeah.
So back over to you.
So driving along, going towards Heathrow Airport with Holly, my wife, and we were in a big G63, big gas-guzzling G63, which she used to love. And passing us were 7 or 8 electric cars at the time. And I'm going back 4 years now. And I'm looking and saying, I just kept seeing more of these Teslas, more. And I had this idea, first of all, where I'd said, I think as a juxtaposed scenario to supercar sales, I need to have this foothold in with EVC, electric vehicles. Because, and people talk about alternative fuels and hydrogen. Listen, there's a place for all of those technologies. Yeah. Depends on the application they're used for, but there is a place. But I knew that when you come in and your phone runs out of charge, you plug it in, what's it using? Electricity. When you turn a light on the wall, a switch is there. Electricity from an infrastructure perspective to do with cars, it's there, it's inherent, and we're using it every day. You're not having to put a hydrogen fuel cell in. You're not having to put, the gubbins of LPG. It's there, it's used every day. So I just knew there was never going to be this Betamax VHS scenario, as I always use. I knew that electric vehicles would be championed by the manufacturers who were under huge pressure to get the emissions down.
Yep.
So the first thought was, let's go and create a used Tesla business, because all Tesla were really worried about at the time, as they are now really, selling new cars. But then I realised battery technology that are in the cars is the most valuable part of the body of the car.
Yep.
So if the battery becomes defunct, the car's worthless. Now, if you had, and the way that I like to scale a business, en masse a series of electric vehicles and the batteries became defunct, you'd have to crawl back pretty damn quickly to get your money back. You're in trouble. So it wasn't about a used proposition for the car in the market. It was really about how people put the juice in the cars. Because everyone talks about range anxiety. We can't, I want an electric vehicle, but my commute is from here to Birmingham. It doesn't work, and I don't want to be sat on. And they're right. They're absolutely right. But I thought, as electric vehicles become more prominent, there is going to be this necessity for how people put the juice in these cars. And battery tech's getting better and better and better. By the day, it's getting better, but we still needed to be part of the infrastructure that put the juice in the cars. So that's how Brim was born. Now, my co-founder, he's a big car guy, Toby, who you've met clearly, and he had just he's the aftermath of selling a business, and he said to me, it's all very nice with VVS and what have you, but is there anything else you're looking at? And his background is he's a very clever dare I say, I shouldn't be saying this, he'll be looking at me now on this, but I don't want his head to get too
geeky. He's super geeky.
Oh my God. He's in another level of, but he's a fantastic product designer.
And he's a lovely guy as well.
He is. And the yin to my yang, as I say, we might clash heads occasionally, but he's...
I've seen that.
But he's definitely the yin to the yang. And with Toby, I said to him, I want to enter the charger market. I think there's a definite move here where we can provide something. He said, I can make that look really nice and shiny and very Apple-like, if you like, but also the technology that's written around it. We need an angle. And what we thought was, we don't just want to be another charge point business that's, because at the time, it was all to do with people that, it's coming to an end that now, but if you bought an electric car, you went in to say your Nissan or your Ford dealer, and they'd say to you, you would sell you the car, and you go, well, how do I put the charge in the car? They go, oh, you need a charger point. Well, how do I do that? Don't know.
Yeah.
So there was this disconnect, really. People wanted to use the car, but how did they put the charge point on the wall?
And there was new developments that being built with no charging points because the planning consent had been previous years.
Exactly. And what happened was there was a shift in the market with legislation for the home builders, where part of building regs, you had to have a charge point with a new built house.
Absolutely.
And we saw this and we thought, well, why don't we write some technology around that supports, if you like, the home builder market and the necessity to roll these charge points out en masse.
Yep.
Now, and I know your housing market background. To me, it's fairly new, the housing market. I hang on to the shirt tails of the likes of yourself and other people that we
it's a very small shirt tail, by
But now where I'm getting to is we've learned very, very fast. But what was absolutely at the top of the agenda was the power constraints that the home builders had.
And that's where I mentioned earlier on in the difference.
Absolutely. Listen, all home builders want to build more houses within, if they can supply more houses within the scheme that they've got, then that's where their quid's in.
But it's also been an afterthought for the house builders. And you and I have sat in a few meetings and seen plans come out in front of us, and you can see where they're running cables from.
Yeah, it's just been ridiculous. And I think that's an education path that's needed to happen. Bear in mind, first of all, EVC is something that the home builders are looking at, or charge points is something that the home builders are looking at as, they've just come out of COVID with steel and wood, energy prices woofing through the roof. The last thing they want to be worried about is...
And a downturn in the market.
A complete downturn.
And to go back to that, especially when we've had so many battles to get a planning consent.
Oh yeah,
in the first one, it's not like it was back in the day where you could pick the phone up and say, "Can I pop in and see you?"
Yeah.
And say, "Look, I just want to make some alterations here that are beneficial to the end user."
Yeah.
Jesus, A, you can't get hold of anyone.
No,
and B, you just sit there and you go, "No, I can't possibly go through that again."
Oh, again, pulling hen's teeth. It was. The initials, legislation fell in our lap, and we've never been so thankful for it. Together with making some very good relationships and putting into place some contracts now where we're exclusive or 3-year providers for. We've done the deal. It's common knowledge now and commonplace that we're the supplier for 3 years for Persimmon, one of the largest home builders in the country, which really was a fantastic player to be.
Listen, you and I met for a third party, and I've sat down with various people over the years that have asked me to do things, be non-exec, etc. But the one thing you had there was, it wasn't just the charges; it was the way you could provide it.
Yeah, I've probably not made clear about exactly how the company's or the product is structured. Really, one side of it's hardware, and the other side of it is software. And the hardware is the box that we put on the wall. That all people want to do is come in, and our play or our mission statement really is that every single new build home, with any of the players that were or the home builders that we're actually providing for, will have one of our charge points, and it will become a standard. So it will be your BT services, your Sky Q services, and your Brim services for EVC.
Yeah.
And on the back of that, what we're doing for the home builder is the unit itself is of a cost price that is commensurate with what the market would have. Yep. So we're cheap. But the real value to them is the software. And the software is taking into consideration dynamic power management. So it will load balance, it will take into effect the whole scheme, and it will work this base of charge points that are in there in compliance and commensurate with the power that's coming in by way of the substations.
And the way it gets pushed out to people that need it at the right time.
Exactly. At the right money, at the right kilowatt charge. Behind that is a whole heap of data that's being created.
Yep.
So we think, when we look down the road and we look over, we're just about to go through, or we're just preparing for Series A, the institutional money investment now. We've got some really, really fantastic announcements to make in June. I can't say it now, but the board, let's just say...
the case, and I might know some of it.
Yeah, exactly. The board is now complete for us to execute what we're going to do. And, whenever I get involved with something, or whenever some of the investors that I've brought in that are now jumped in with Brim, there's a few parts that have to meet the criteria. One is it a scalable business? Two is the team that's involved, but importantly, the execution, the CV of the team that are involved. Have they executed in the past, and how?
Yeah.
And that's what we've put together. It's a real heavyweight team. You're going to see, as I said, in June, when we're going out for the next round, which will be the institutional money that will come in, and that will set us forward for Series B. But we're already way ahead of plan as to where we were. We're doing about pipe fill now on charge points, just to let you know. It's about 2,000 a month.
Is it really?
Yeah, and we look at that doubling and trebling.
Yeah.
When I look at, and I'm not here to look, competition's always great in any market, I always believe. But when I look at how we've come in, and it's, in business everything's about timing, but I touch wood here because it's more luck rather than judgment. But we look at some of the other players that are in, who have been first, more first to the game, who are suffering because it was just a hardware play that we had.
Yeah.
Be under no estimations, we're a software company. We will end up giving the hardware away at a point in time. It will all be about the software and the
technology side.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm boring you.
I've obviously been on this journey with you, and it's been lovely to see. One of the things that's always struck me about you, and I know you're a busy guy, I know you've got some other businesses, but how do you keep your emotional wellness? Because I look at people that I work with, and I work with you, and I'm always intrigued. And I know people, the audience we have on this podcast, one of the things we talk about is emotional wellness, mental well-being. You always seem to be on top of your game. Is that just an appearance, or is that the way you are?
No, I used to be terribly unhealthy. I was, I would smoke cigars. I was doing all the wrong naughty things when I was in the city. I boozed too much. I'll give you a dynamic. Back then, out of the 10 of us that started when we were at Colt, out of 10 of us that started, 10 lads across the floor, 5 had heart attacks, 2 are dead, and 1's got terminal heart disease.
Really?
And that's lifestyle and, doing all the wrong things at the wrong time. And I think I'm 3 times married, 4 kids as well. So no more kids, no more wives. But I think you get to the point where you realise, I've always been quite a confident person, but when it comes down to watching other people that, you've seen your peers, if you like, at the time, and they're falling now, you realise that there's the importance of keeping healthy. So I'm not a health freak in any way, shape or form. I don't particularly like having to go to the gymnasium, but I go probably 5 days out of 7 a week.
Do you box?
I still box, which I find gives me that release from it being mundane as training.
Do you have something they can't hit you because you're good looking? Do you know what I mean?
I'm quite quick.
And that's the old foul on that one as well.
The art of boxing is to hit and not be hit. But no, yeah, I think that gym and exercise and what have you puts your mind in the right place.
Well, it's certainly working. Before we sat down, I said that you'd be amazed how quick the time goes. And that's not something I've had people say when they've sat in my company before. But I like to touch on charities. Is there any charities that are close to your heart?
Well, Kent Air Ambulance for the business. We do a bit for Demelza House. Oh, my Lord, what's the children's hospital here? Great Ormond Street. We do a bit for Great Ormond Street for, when you've got terminally ill kids and what have you. And being in the supercar business as well, I think that those cars shouldn't just be left in there under lock and key. They should be shown. And when you've got the likes of, kids that aren't very well, nothing makes me happier than them coming down and having a day out and getting the tags and the books and the pictures and the so on and so forth. So we do a bit for Great Ormond Street as well.
Good. Well, before we sat down, I said that I knew you were a lovely bloke. I think you've just proved it again now. You can take this home because you can wear this the next time you go in, because this is for you.
Very apt, mate. Very apt.
But Neil, it's been lovely to have you on.
Thank you so much.
I meant everything I said. I always enjoy your company, mate. I wish you all the best with all the businesses.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing you again soon for a cup of coffee or a little board meeting.
Absolutely fantastic. And thank you for the opportunity for coming on today.
My
talking on Blighty.
My pleasure. Viewers, listeners, petrol heads, I could talk to this man all day, and I say that a lot about people I have on, and it's true. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. If you're going to go and buy a flash car, take on this man's advice. Light on the right foot and only go if it's sunny. Take care. Stay safe. See you soon.
Thank you.